Hello and welcome. Welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Virtual Church. My name is Beth Calvert and I'm delighted to be with you this super summer day. Our speaker today is Bryan Kleske. You may well know his friendly smile and delightful voice, but you may not know that he is the rarest of souls in these parts, someone who was raised as a Unitarian Universalist. Rosemary, Bryan's wife, tells a story of when they were first dating. She was raised a Catholic and was treading carefully in the area of religious affiliation. She asked Bryan, "Well, what do Unitarian Universalists believe in?" And he blithely responded, "We believe in having wine and cheese parties." We all know it's a little deeper than that, but what a great place to begin. Thanks, Bryan, for taking us a little further on this path today. Our chalice lighting today is written and performed by Bryan.
We light this chalice with compassion for all people of the earth. We light this chalice for equality for all children at their birth. We illuminate to end all hate with peace and freedom for all. All of this plus love and bliss, the greatest joys of all. All of this plus love and bliss, the greatest joys of all.
We all have different reasons for gathering here each week, but we have this much in common. We work together as a church to transform ourselves, our community, and our world by sharing love, pursuing justice, and seeking wonder. Our musical prelude today is "Take Me Home, Darlin' Jimmy," written and performed by our very talented music director, Charis Carter, in acknowledgement of our journey back with Bryan to his home church.
traveling light. He's all that you need to know just what it means. The hunger burns for the old that you did not even know that you need. The turkeys in the tree, and I can hear that train sound clear through that storm that I rode when I left home, never to return. But take me home, darling Jimmy, take me home. I can smell those wild flowers blooming on. Take me home, darling Jimmy, take me home. Where them Blue Ridge Mountains glow, that's where I wanna go. The deer are in the field, and we got 4 new fawn this year. I heard the mayor plowed it down. Well, the view's never the same when you come back home. But take me home, darling Jimmy, take me home. I can smell those wild flowers blooming on. Take me home, darling Jimmy, take me home. Where them Blue Ridge Mountains glow, that's where I wanna go.
We will sing Loving Kindness next. Please light a candle or hold a light in your heart to dispel the darkness, to honor someone or some event, or to lift up a memory.
Hello, my name is Bryan Kleske. I've been a member of the church for about 15 years, and I currently serve as the program's trustee on the board, as well as in the virtual choir. A number of congregants have been asked to fill in the pulpit time during the interim, as Reverend Jeff has retired and Reverend Tiffany will not be with us until August. We will strive to keep you riveted to your screens for a few weeks yet. I've been asked to share my experience from the perspective of being one of the few in the church who was born a Unitarian Universalist. Technically, this is only a half-truth, My parents were members of a Universalist church back in 1959 when I was born. Their congregation was sharing space in a large Protestant church with a Unitarian congregation. And then in May of 1961, when the UUA was founded, they joined together and built a brand new church, and we all became UUs. Of course, the years from birth to, say, third or fourth grade are probably very similar to those of all my non-UU friends. Play nice, share, color things, snack time, paste macaroni art, call out if someone's bleeding, and forgetting pretty much anything that has to do with church stuff that might have been mentioned in class from week to week. Then about fourth to fifth grade, we started getting more involved in learning the differences between our beliefs from others. In the 60s, there was still the basic elevator speech that Unitarians believe in one God, and that as opposed to the Trinitarians that believed in the construct of Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and that Universalists believed in universal salvation. A loving God would never sentence his creations to eternal torment. Therefore, no existence of hell. The conceptual lack of hell did not bother some of my friends as much as their parents. They would ask how one could lead a moral life without fear of eternal torment. And I would answer along the lines that if being moral is something you need to be coerced into, does it really qualify you for a place in heaven? If the only reason you help folks is because you are afraid of going to hell, does that make you holy? I learned years later this was very similar to teachings in ancient Hasidic literature. A wise rabbi gives lessons on the value of every person, and a student asks, but what possibly could an atheist teach us? What value could we learn from them? And the rabbi responds that learning from the atheist would show true compassion. For when an atheist helps someone in need, they're doing it out of their heart. They're not doing it by being coerced, into going to heaven or hell. Therefore, if someone asks you for help, it would be better for you to act more like the atheist and say, let me help you, instead of saying, well, I'll pray for you. So one God, everyone ends up in heaven eventually. But by the end of the 60s, this wasn't where many Unitarian churches really were anymore. We had attracted a wide group of folks with varied belief systems who couldn't find a community in their faiths nearby. We also attracted folks interested in the civil rights movement, anti-war in Vietnam, women's liberation, building unions to protect workers, anti-apartheid, agnostics and atheists, pagans and LGBTQ. And when asked by my friends what my church was like, I would say, well, with your church, it's kind of like your grandparents have been going to this restaurant and your parents now go to the restaurant and they take you and you go to this restaurant and you all eat the meal. And there's only one meal and you all eat the same thing, and you're expected to take your kids there and they're going to eat that same meal. Whereas with my church, I walk into a restaurant, there's 100 different people in there. They're all eating something completely different. And they say, oh, this is so good. Why don't you give this a try? Would you like to try some? I recall I once attended a Christmas midnight mass with an old girlfriend, and it was spoken entirely in Latin. I followed along with all the standing up and kneeling down and, yeah, Father, whatever you say, good for you too. And afterwards I asked her, what was it exactly the priest had said? And she said, I haven't got a clue. I just know when to stand and kneel and say the proper responses. And it boggled my mind then, and it still boggles my mind that, they could do that. I guess they don't do much in Latin anymore in that church. Somewhere around 5th grade, we started being taken to regular field trips to a wide variety of churches and a synagogue to watch and listen, and then the next weekend we would talk about what we learned, what we noticed. I attended Catholic, Methodist, Jewish, Quaker, Presbyterian, Southern Baptist, And we also had guest lecturers come in for indigenous American beliefs, Druid, Germanic pagan, and various other things. And as I was never really informed that I had to pick one of these specifically, I tended to learn a bunch about each one and kind of weigh them against each other. And it often turned out I knew more about the religions than my friends did about their own religions. And I noticed that their churches never really did anything much to grow fellowship, except for maybe the Catholic Church, who had the Christian Youth Association basketball or something like that. With us, we always had coffee hour, and actually at the church of my youth, people would stay around for hours. And sometimes they'd go out to lunch together. They'd take a walk down by the river behind the church. We had the monthly potluck and just all kinds of wonderful things to do. And my friends basically didn't hang out with anybody that they went to church with. I always thought that was very strange. Many of the Sunday religious education classes revolved around the history of the church, and I'd like to say that I can recall all of those wonderful lessons on famous UUs through the years, but I cannot. All that slipped away, and most of my knowledge comes from my adult learning. I remember the people who taught me much better than the things that they taught me. During my youth, we had a regular breaking bread Easter service when the families would bring homemade breads from their family tradition with plenty of eggs, bacon, coffee, and juice. A maypole would be set up for a picnic in May. Before Halloween, the kids would always have a little parade through the service to show off their costumes. There was an annual summer picnic during the months when we did not have church open, something my friends envied quite a bit and never quite understood. And the winter party was probably the most fun of all. There would be classes in wreath making, candle making, decorations, and cookie baking. Our church had a very large fireplace, and as the day waned, the kids would search the grounds for the Yule log, and whoever found the log would get to ride it back. The couple of guys would tie a rope to it and drag the kid through the snow, and we'd all burn the wood in the fireplace. It ended in the sanctuary with everyone watching a old movie. I recall the black and white movie The General with Buster Keaton was a yearly favorite. We kids never seemed to see much of our folks during those hours. And for all I know, they could have snuck away to buy presents or something like that. Never did know. I probably need to discuss the summers off aspect of the church in my youth. Back in the early good old days, the UU churches in the U.S. were mainly around Boston, Massachusetts. And during the summer months, everyone would leave Boston for Cape Cod and other beach areas, including the minister. And as the churches become farther flung, it seemed like such a great idea that most of the other churches would similarly shutter up in the summertime, especially prior to the air conditioning and in the hot summer. And no one in the north, of course, had air conditioning, and most of the churches still don't. And about the only time my church would be utilized in the summertime was for the annual Cranberry Hammer Dulcimer Gathering, which my father happened to be one of the founders. Here was a big open building with a dozen classrooms, a large sanctuary, as a huge outside performance area, plenty of room for parking and tenting, and a large kitchen for making food. It was just perfect for musicians to come and spend a lot of time together. I grew out of the Cranberry Coffee House my father started in the church in 1972. Even now, when we have weekly services all year and have expanded our summer programs with activities in the church such as covenant groups and children's camps, the practice of the minister taking the summer off and maybe going on sabbatical or guest lectures or something like that, that still lingers on. And lay speakers are always in demand during the summertime. Unitarian Universalists have always been in the vanguard of many progressive ideas, as I mentioned before, and over the years, the call to action in our church have helped shape most of my philosophies. The civil rights movement, the women's liberation, protesting the war in Vietnam, protesting U.S. actions in Cuba, Dominican Republic, Chile, Nicaragua, Argentina, Panama, and Grenada, supporting Greenpeace and Save the Whales, boycotting Gallo wines to support the International Farm Workers Union efforts. My church allowed gay and lesbian groups to use our space for meeting after a gay nightclub downtown was firebombed in the 80s. A lot of people were very worried about that. The UUA developed the first comprehensive human sexuality course for young teens called About Your Sexuality, and I was actually in one of the very first groups and may have been one of the first graduates to facilitate the course 8 years later. There was a normal group for decriminalizing marijuana possession. Our social justice folks helped secure and deliver food and clothing to many needy families. Of course, through all of this, there were some tough patches along the way. In the late 60s, responding to unrest in major cities, the UUA called for a special conference to determine a strategy on how to best help the Black Action Caucus, the BAC, meet its needs. And a separate group called the Black UU Caucus split off from the BAC. And money was budgeted for the BUUC, but the UUA mismanaged funds and caused the funds never to be actually given out. And many UU churches lost members who were persons of color. And at the same time, there was already a decline in membership due to strong differences concerning the war in Vietnam. More conservative members felt that protesting the war was not patriotic. And in my church, they actually split off to form a fellowship all of their own. Most returned after about 10 years. But there was for a few years a interpretive dance choir, which I was a member of. That was a rough patch. We're a progressive church, and hopefully we'll endeavor to keep in the front of the pack when it comes to making the world a better place. I hope that we can overcome our petty differences at all times for the greater good, knowing that we're all fallible but better together than apart. I would like to thank Jeff Breer for his insights and interesting sermons and the children's stories. I wish Reverend Tiffany much love and happiness in her new pulpit. And I want to give a special thanks to my first Reverend, Harry Thor, who led our church from 1963 to 1979, my formative years from age 4 to 20. In closing, a line from Goethe: whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it. Action has magic, grace, and power in it. Thank you, and have a pleasant rest of your day.
A Facebook post last week explains us this way: Unitarian Universalists don't want to convert you. We want to talk with you, to understand you, and welcome you into our community, just as you are. We don't expect everyone to think like we do, but we offer loving fellowship to everyone who wants to work toward a more just and compassionate world. Our time together is nearly finished, but our work is not done. May our spirits be renewed and our resolve strengthened as we meet the challenges of the week to come. Please help me close this service now. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. My name is Michelle, and I am happy that we could be together today. Thanks for joining us, and please come back whenever you like. We will post another pre-recorded virtual church service next Sunday. You can find up-to-date information on local events, social justice issues, inspiration, and content for all ages on our Facebook page. Please contact our caring team if you or anyone you know needs help during this time. Our postlude this week is written and performed by our own Guerry McConnell. She will sing, "We Are a Part of You." As you make your way through the week, remember these words: you are good, you are loved, we all need a little work, and we're all in this together. And there's nothing left to say except, yay, church!
We are the mountains you are tearing down. We are the creatures you are scattering around. With you we're living this great web of life. With you we're trying to live in the light. We are a part of you. 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 From the time that life began. When you destroy us, a part of you dies. You lose our songs, you lose our evening sighs. Listen before you scrape us away, to plant your buildings that will soon decay. We are a part of you. 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 From the time that life began. Consider this when you build your roads, the sacrifice you make when